Every nation on Earth is defined by its borders. Some were shaped by nature, others by conquest. Many were negotiated around conference tables by people who never set foot on the land they divided. Centuries later, those decisions continue to influence millions of lives. Today, we're exploring 7 remarkable places where international borders became far more than simple lines on a map. Each one tells a story of diplomacy, conflict, forgotten agreements, and the unexpected consequences of history. Some are fascinating, some are tragic, and all of them remind us that the world is far stranger than it first appears. Welcome to The World Explained. Our journey begins in one of Europe's most remarkable towns. At first glance, Baarle appears perfectly ordinary. Quiet neighborhoods, family homes, small cafes, brick streets lined with bicycles. But beneath this peaceful setting lies one of the most complicated international borders ever created. Unlike almost every town on Earth, Baarle belongs to 2 countries at once. The Belgian municipality of Baarle is scattered across Dutch territory in a patchwork of small enclaves. Some of these Belgian enclaves even contain tiny Dutch enclaves inside them. What appears to be a single community is in reality an intricate mosaic of 2 sovereign nations. Walking through town, visitors regularly cross from Belgium into the Netherlands without realizing it. White crosses embedded into the pavement quietly mark the international boundary. A single stroll to the bakery may involve crossing the border several times. Some homes are divided by the frontier itself. Businesses pay taxes according to which country their official front door occupies. Even emergency services cooperate closely because a single neighborhood can fall under 2 entirely different legal systems. So how did such an unusual place come to exist? The answer lies more than 8 centuries in the past. During the Middle Ages, powerful feudal lords controlled much of what is now Belgium and the Netherlands. Rather than exchanging entire territories, local nobles frequently traded individual farms, fields, forests, and estates. These land agreements were made for political alliances, marriages, debts, and military obligations. Over generations, ownership became increasingly fragmented. When modern nation-states eventually emerged, those medieval property rights were largely preserved. Instead of redrawing the boundaries from scratch, governments accepted the complex inheritance of the past. The result was Baarle, a town where medieval land deals continue to shape daily life hundreds of years later. Yet what could have become a source of constant conflict has instead become an extraordinary example of international cooperation. Belgian and Dutch authorities coordinate policing, public utilities, postal services, and infrastructure with remarkable efficiency. Residents have learned to embrace the complexity rather than fight against it. Today, Baarle stands as a reminder that borders need not divide people. Sometimes they can encourage nations to work together in ways few would expect. But if Baarle represents one of the world's most complicated borders, our next destination pushes complexity to an entirely different level. For centuries, the border between India and Bangladesh was considered the most confusing international boundary on Earth, not because of mountains or rivers, but because it contained an astonishing collection of tiny territories trapped inside one another. Imagine living in your own country while being completely surrounded by another. To reach your homeland, you would first have to cross an international border. For thousands of people, this was everyday life. Until 2015, the region contained nearly 200 enclaves, small pockets of one nation entirely enclosed by the territory of the other. Some were only a few acres in size. Others contained entire villages. The arrangement became so complicated that one location, known as Dahala Kagrabari, was a third-order enclave. An Indian enclave inside a Bangladeshi enclave, inside an Indian enclave, all surrounded by Bangladesh. It was one of the most geographically complex places ever recorded. How did such an extraordinary situation arise? The answer reaches back several centuries. Long before modern India and Bangladesh existed, this region was divided among local kingdoms and princely states. Territory frequently changed hands through battles, negotiations, and political marriages. Instead of creating continuous borders, rulers often retained isolated villages and estates scattered across the countryside. When British colonial rule eventually ended in 1947, the partition of India transformed these historic landholdings into international territory. What had once been inconvenient administrative boundaries suddenly became sovereign borders. Entire communities found themselves isolated from the countries to which they officially belonged. The consequences were profound. Many residents had little access to government services. Police rarely entered the enclaves. Schools, hospitals, electricity, and clean water were often difficult to obtain. Simple tasks, visiting family, farming land, attending school, or seeking medical treatment could require crossing multiple international checkpoints. Some people lived their entire lives without receiving basic citizenship documents. They existed in a legal and political limbo that lasted for decades. Finally, after years of negotiation, India and Bangladesh reached a historic agreement in 2015. The two nations exchanged 162 enclaves in one of the largest peaceful land swaps in modern history. More than 50,000 people were given the opportunity to choose which country they wished to call home. For many families, it marked the first time they gained full access to schools, healthcare, public services, and legal recognition. It was not merely a change on a map, it was a transformation of everyday life. Today, the bewildering maze of enclaves has largely disappeared. Yet it remains one of the most remarkable examples of how decisions made centuries ago can continue to shape the lives of ordinary people. And while the India-Bangladesh enclaves may have represented the world's most intricate border, our next destination owes its existence to something far simpler, a single word written into a peace treaty. From one of the world's most complex borders, we arrive at one of its most unexpected. Nestled among the rugged peaks of the Pyrenees lies the quiet Spanish town of Llívia. At first glance, there is nothing unusual about it. Stone buildings line narrow streets. Families gather in cafes. Church bells echo across the valley. Yet, despite being unmistakably Spanish, Llívia is completely surrounded by France. It is one of Europe's oldest and most remarkable enclaves. To understand why, we must travel back to the 17th century. For decades, France and Spain had been locked in a costly struggle for dominance across Europe. That conflict finally ended in 1659 with the signing of the Treaty of the Pyrenees. Under its terms, Spain agreed to surrender 33 villages to France. The wording seems straightforward, but hidden within the treaty was a distinction that would shape the region for centuries. Llívia was not officially classified as a village. It held the legal status of a town. Because the treaty referred only to villages, Spain argued that Llívia had never been included in the agreement. France reluctantly accepted the interpretation. The surrounding territory became French. Llívia remained Spanish. More than 3 centuries later, that single legal distinction still defines the map. Today, residents travel to mainland Spain using a specially designated access road that crosses French territory. The arrangement depends not on walls or checkpoints, but on decades of cooperation between two neighboring countries. It is a quiet reminder that history often turns on the smallest details, sometimes even a single word. But not every unusual border is the result of diplomacy. Some exist because nations cannot agree on where a border should be at all. Deep within the deserts between Egypt and Sudan lies one of the rarest places on Earth, a stretch of land with no permanent population, no recognized government, no official claim of sovereignty. Its name is Bir Tawil. Unlike almost every other piece of land on our planet, Bir Tawil belongs to no recognized nation. Its existence is the consequence of two competing borders drawn during the era of British colonial rule. In 1899, Britain established a political boundary between Egypt and Sudan. 3 years later, colonial administrators introduced a second boundary designed to better reflect the realities of local tribal communities. The two maps did not match. That difference created a dilemma which continues to this day. If Egypt accepts one boundary, it gains the strategically valuable Llívia Triangle along the Red Sea, but loses Bir Tawil. If Sudan accepts the other, it also gains the Llívia Triangle while leaving Bir Tawil behind. Both nations claim the Llívia Triangle. Neither is willing to recognize the border that would require claiming Bir Tawil. As a result, the desert remains outside the internationally recognized control of either country. Although it has attracted occasional adventurers hoping to establish symbolic micronations, none of these claims have legal standing under international law. There are no border crossings, no customs officers, no permanent settlements, only silence. Bir Tawil demonstrates an unusual truth about political geography. Sometimes the most remarkable border is not the one that exists, but the one that does not. Yet our next destination is impossible to ignore. It is among the most heavily guarded borders anywhere on Earth, a place where a war that ended decades ago has never truly been resolved. Few places on Earth capture the consequences of division more powerfully than the Korean Demilitarized Zone. Known simply as the DMZ, it stretches approximately 250 kilometers across the Korean peninsula. Despite its name, it is anything but demilitarized. On either side stand hundreds of thousands of soldiers, artillery batteries, observation posts, armored vehicles, and one of the world's most sophisticated military surveillance systems. The origins of this border lie in the aftermath of the Second World War. For centuries, Korea had existed as a single nation. But following Japan's surrender in 1945, the peninsula was divided along the 38th parallel. Soviet forces occupied the north. American forces occupied the south. What began as a temporary administrative arrangement soon hardened into one of the defining front lines of the Cold War. In 1950, war erupted. Over the next 3 years, millions of soldiers and civilians would lose their lives as the peninsula became the battleground for one of the 20th century's deadliest conflicts. When the fighting finally stopped in 1953, no peace treaty was signed. Instead, both sides agreed to an armistice. Technically, the Korean War has never officially ended. The DMZ remains the physical reminder of that unfinished conflict. Yet history often produces unexpected consequences. Because almost no civilians have been allowed to enter the zone for more than 70 years, nature has quietly reclaimed the landscape. Forests have flourished, wetlands have expanded. Endangered cranes, deer, black bears, and countless other species now inhabit an ecosystem largely untouched by human development. What was once created as a buffer between opposing armies has become one of Asia's most remarkable wildlife sanctuaries. It is a striking paradox, a landscape shaped by war that now serves as a refuge for peace. But while the Korean peninsula remains frozen in an uneasy stalemate, our next destination reveals a different kind of conflict. Not one rooted in the past, but one that continues to unfold in the mountains of the Himalayas. High above the clouds, where some of the tallest mountains on Earth pierce the sky, lies one of the world's most dangerous frontiers. It has no continuous fence, no universally accepted boundary markers, and in many places, no agreement that it even exists in the same location. This is the Line of Actual Control, better known as the LAC. Stretching for more than 3,400 kilometers across the Himalayas, it separates two of the world's largest nations, India and China. But unlike most international borders, the Line of Actual Control is not a formally recognized boundary. Instead, it represents the positions held by each country's military following the brief but devastating Sino-Indian War of 1962. The problem is that India and China do not agree on where that line should be. Each nation publishes maps showing different claims. In some regions, those claims overlap by dozens of kilometers. What one country considers its own territory, the other regards as an intrusion. The result is a frontier defined not by certainty, but by competing realities. The environment itself makes the dispute even more formidable. Many sections lie at elevations exceeding 5,000 meters. The air contains only about half the oxygen found at sea level. Winter temperatures can plunge below -40 degrees Celsius. Avalanches, blizzards, and altitude sickness pose as much danger as the political tensions themselves. Yet despite these extreme conditions, thousands of soldiers remain stationed along the frontier throughout the year. Roads are carved into mountainsides. Airfields have been constructed at breathtaking elevations. Entire villages have appeared in regions claimed by both nations. The border has become an immense contest of infrastructure, logistics, and strategic influence. The world was reminded of these tensions in June 2020. In the Galwan Valley, Indian and Chinese troops clashed in one of the deadliest confrontations between the two countries in decades. Because long-standing agreements discouraged the use of firearms near the disputed boundary, soldiers fought using improvised weapons, stones, and sheer physical force. Lives were lost on both sides. The incident shocked the international community, not because it began a new conflict, but because it revealed that one had never truly disappeared. Beyond questions of territory lies another reason these mountains matter. The Himalayas are often called the water tower of Asia. Their glaciers feed many of the continent's greatest rivers, sustaining nearly 2 billion people downstream. Control of these highlands carries strategic significance that extends far beyond the border itself. Here, geography shapes the future of nations. The Line of Actual Control remains one of the world's most closely watched frontiers, a place where maps remain contested, where diplomacy continues, and where every movement is measured with extraordinary caution. Yet remarkable as it is, our final destination is unlike any other border on Earth. It is not defined by conflict, nor by legal ambiguity. Instead, it challenges one of the most fundamental ideas we take for granted: time itself. In the narrow waters between Alaska and Siberia sit two small islands separated by less than 4 kilometers. From one shore, the other is clearly visible. On a calm day, it seems close enough to reach by boat, or during the depths of winter, when sea ice bridges the water, perhaps even on foot. Yet these neighboring islands belong to different worlds. Little Diomede is part of the United States. Big Diomede belongs to Russia. Between them runs one of the most significant invisible lines on Earth, the international date line. This single boundary creates one of the planet's most extraordinary geographical phenomena. Although the islands are only a few kilometers apart, they exist on different calendar days. When it is Monday morning on Little Diomede, it is already Tuesday across the water on Big Diomede. From the American shoreline, it is quite literally possible to look toward tomorrow. For centuries, however, these islands were not divided at all. The indigenous Inupiat and Yupik peoples traveled freely across the Bering Strait, hunting marine mammals, trading goods, and maintaining family connections that stretched across what is now an international frontier. That changed during the 20th century. As relations between the United States and the Soviet Union deteriorated, The Bering Strait became one of the closest points of contact between the two superpowers. The narrow channel separating the islands became known as the Ice Curtain. Families who had lived as one community for generations suddenly found themselves separated by ideology, military patrols, and one of the most heavily guarded political divides of the Cold War. For decades, crossing from one island to the other was virtually impossible. Today, Little Diomede remains home to a small indigenous community that has adapted to life in one of North America's most remote locations. There are no roads connecting the island to the mainland. Supplies arrive by air or by sea when weather permits. Medical emergencies often require helicopter evacuations across hundreds of kilometers of Arctic wilderness. Life here is shaped as much by isolation as by geography. Across the water, Big Diomede has no permanent civilian population. It serves primarily as a Russian military outpost, standing watch over one of the world's most strategically significant waterways. Separated by less than 4 kilometers and by almost an entire day, the two islands symbolize far more than a border. They remind us that the lines humans draw can separate not only nations, but our very experience of time. Borders often appear permanent, sharp lines printed on maps, simple divisions between one nation and another. Yet every border tells a story. Some were drawn after wars. Others emerged from royal marriages, forgotten treaties, colonial administrations, or political compromises made generations ago. Many continue to shape the lives of millions of people every single day. The places we've explored are reminders that geography is never just about land. It is about history, culture, identity, conflict, and cooperation. A line on a map can separate languages, governments, families, or even the calendar itself. Yet behind every border lies a deeply human story, one that reveals not only where nations begin and end, but how civilizations have evolved over centuries. Perhaps that is what makes these extraordinary places so compelling. They challenge the way we think about the world, and they remind us that the maps we often take for granted are in many ways living records of humanity's past. If you enjoyed this journey, let us know a remarkable place you'd like to see featured in a future episode. And if you're passionate about history, geography, archaeology, and the hidden stories that shaped our world, be sure to subscribe to The World Explained. Because the world is filled with extraordinary places, you simply have to know where to look. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.